I'm very intrigued by the society of Cybertron. 90% of the population is enslaved, having no food, no money, and no healthcare other than what is necessary for them to continue working. They've been stripped of all of their power. Meanwhile, the people with actual power in this world belittle and abuse them at all times. What a unique and interesting idea. That doesn't sound familiar at all.
I must find this diamond in the rough.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. Oh, and there will be spoilers for the entirety of Transformers 1. You have been warned. The brilliantly named Transformers 1 that will definitely not be confused with any other movie in existence begins with GoBot trying to sneak into a building. He uses air vents, which the robots technically don't need to breathe, but for some reason are sturdy enough and big enough to hold a forklift. After entering the archive, he dances around easily avoidable lasers that are on the ground instead of the air for some reason. GoBot then uses a Nintendo 64 cartridge in order to play the exposition for the movie. After being caught by the guards, he does a fake transformation joke and runs away, using a bunch of parkour to fly through the city and avoiding the guards until they turn into jets and catch up to him in seconds.
Here you are! Ain't that just like a land creature to keep a sea creature waiting?
Luckily, GoBot is saved by Brobot, who bumps into the guards with a cart. GoBot then somehow sneaks by the guards and gets into the cart without them noticing. Brobot then moves the cart into the train so GoBot can get out and they can have witty banter. And then a sticker with the Decepticons logo is brought in, and that's when I'm like, oh really, is this what this film's going to be? It's going to be a bunch of references and conveniences in order to make this plot happen and sell a bunch of merchandise. This thought process continued as the main characters went to work, and I wondered if the guards just eventually gave up on trying to find GoBot. There's not going to be any wanted posters or anything, or a search? No? Oh, okay. We're just flying around weird lava lamp things. That works. Luckily, the movie starts to pick up when they begin mining, which proves to be 100 times more dangerous than human mining, which, if you think about it, is really dangerous because people die in those caves all the time. An accident causes all of the robots to flee from the mine, with them screaming at GoBot to leave behind someone trapped under rubble. But GoBot doesn't listen. Instead, he breaks protocol and saves the guy that's trapped under the rubble. It made me wonder if losing a limb is a big deal for robots. Like, are they just going to replace it and it's not that big of a deal? But because GoBot didn't blindly follow orders, his superior, female Randall from Recess, gets demoted, even though everyone involved, including GoBot, was pointing out that GoBot was the one responsible, making this the first time in both fictional and real-life history where the supervisor was held responsible for the actions of the employees.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this, and I love you.
After a few quick punches from the evil manager to the heroes, we then see a hologram of their leader. He declares that their mission on the surface was a complete failure, but he praises the mining bots for doing all of the hard work, all the while doing absolutely nothing to change their terrible lives, making it very obvious to the audience that this is a terrible leader. He then announces the ripoff of the Indy 500 after all of the lawsuits have been settled out of court. This inspires GoBot to drag Brobot to the race in order to watch from the starting line, all the while pointing out an event which would send them flying across the city, because tell not show apparently. While I contemplate why they're having a race between land and air vehicles, the obvious bad guy gives a speech pointing out that he is still the obvious bad guy. GoBot then reveals that he dragged Brobot to the race so that they could enter themselves and prove that mining bots aren't any worse than the big robots even though they cannot transform. The race begins, and this is where I started to have a really good time, with the main characters using their wits and riding the other robots in order to stay in the race. No complaints from me here, but I did have to laugh at the scoreboard. Why were Brobot and GoBot on there as a unit together when no one knew that they were going to enter the race? I can imagine someone backstage at the race just cackling to themselves as they hurriedly wrote "the miners" on the scoreboard.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Our main characters do a great job in the race, almost winning, but then are beaten out by the other robots because they can transform and have a lot more power. Brobot and Gobot are then detained, but then are surprised when they're visited by the obvious bad guy, along with his assistant, the Beholder from Dungeons & Dragons. Obvious bad guy praises our main characters for what they did because it inspired the other mining bots to do their best and work harder. But instead of making our characters celebrities and spokespeople for the mining bots in order to keep morale up, he has them tossed down to the lowest level of the world. But this isn't a complaint for me because it's very realistic. Politicians throw useful resources away all of the time for no reason. After arriving down at the lowest point of the world, they find Chuck Nolan down there having lost his mind from watching trash burn for decades upon decades upon decades without any social interaction whatsoever. Luckily, this works out for our heroes because Chuck managed to save a distress beacon from the Primes, revealing where the MacGuffin of the movie is, with the distress beacon functioning as Wilson from the Castaway movie. And I would like to note that this is where the movie really started to click with me. I was laughing at a lot of the humor and I really liked the dynamics between the characters at this point. But I did laugh that the MacGuffin was called the Matrix of Leadership. Really? You couldn't have thought of anything a little bit better than the Matrix of Leadership? Okay then.
Yes, and I guess your best wasn't good enough.
Deciding to go get the MacGuffin, our heroes board a trash train up to the surface. But of course they're caught by female Randall, who threatens to tell Miss Finster that they're breaking the rules during recess. The train takes off, going straight up, and our heroes have to chase after female Randall while climbing up the train. Reminded me of the Uncharted 2 train climb, and making me wonder why very few people ever do this type of trope because it's really cool. They only stop the chase because they're awed by the beauty of the surface, but that beauty comes with a lot of danger because they're soon chased by a rock-a-lanch, resulting in the train becoming the coolest roller coaster ever. I am serious, they really need to make a ride out of that. Unfortunately, that does result in them getting thrown off the train and getting left behind. After punching Gobot in the face a few times, female Randall agrees to go with them because she really doesn't have a choice at this point. They then begin a long walk to the coordinates of the MacGuffin, including a lot of beautiful scenery, robo-deer, and a few jokes about Badassatron that got me to laugh a lot more than I should because I have the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old.
Are you seriously trying to make me jealous by flirting with what is very obviously just 3 kids stacked on top of each other under a trench coat?
Right as they're about to arrive at their destination, they get trapped in a death beam maze run. An evil spaceship from above is randomly searching for things throughout the area, so they hide under different pillars until they're safe, with Gobot saving Chuck's life. And it's around this time where I thought, wait a minute, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this film. I'm invested in the characters, I'm interested in the setting, I want to see where the plot goes, and the humor is actually making me laugh. Even when we get to the teeth cave that actually looks like a Inside the cave, they find a bunch of dead primes, except for one who is only deactivated. Mossbot reveals the truth to our main characters, showing them the past through a dust hologram that is actually really cool. It turns out that obvious bad guy betrayed all of the primes, trying to take the MacGuffin for himself, only for the Matrix of Leadership to disappear from his grasp because he wasn't worthy of it. And because the MacGuffin was the world's source of energy, that's why all the mining bots have to work so hard. Our heroes then look out of a convenient window to see obvious bad guy leading a bunch of troops to kneel before invading aliens. And you know these aliens are evil because they either have insect legs or tentacles, and there's nothing more evil in the world than that apparently. Our heroes are shocked to see that the majority of the energy that they mined for their own world is being given to the aliens. This causes our heroes to go down a spiral where they question everything that they've ever known.
Man, I don't know what to think no more, man.
Okay, let's do the escort. Nobody's messing with your head.
Get out of me
Nobody's messing with your head.
Get out of me
Let's just put, no, nobody's messing with your head, man.
There's then a brilliant infighting scene where Brobot yells at Gobot for dragging him into this mess. Brobot screams that he wants to kill obvious bad guy, and that's at the point where I looked at the sticker on his shoulder and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't fan service, that was actual foreshadowing. I'm sorry Transformers 1, I wasn't familiar with your game. I'm not used to good writing in a Transformers movie. This scene contextualized a lot, making me appreciate the beginning a lot more, including the little details about how the little robots can fit through the vents, but the big robots probably couldn't. Not everything could be explained away, but the more I thought about the film, the better it was, and that's usually a good sign. And when the main characters had the best glow up possible, that cemented that I was actually really enjoying this film. Things only got better when Mossbot told our heroes to run because they'd been found by obvious bad guys' minions. As our heroes struggle to use their new transforming powers that they got from the dead primes, the Mossbot fights back the invading soldiers, transforming into a Beastbot and making the scene so cool that the only way it could have been topped is if he was a dinosaur instead.
That was totally wicked!
After our heroes escape, Brobot starts his heel turn by promising never to respect authority ever again, especially that of a Prime, and he says that as he's looking directly into GoBot's eyes. Unfortunately, before the scene can continue, they were all knocked unconscious, and we flip over to see Mossbot being confronted by Obvious Bad Guy. They're in the old council chamber of the Primes, and Obvious Bad Guy kills Mossbot once he realizes that the old man wasn't going to reveal anything that he knew. And that surprised me because I didn't think that they were actually going to flatline any characters, but hey, thumbs up, good job, movie. Meanwhile, it's revealed that our characters were actually captured by the Decepticons who aren't the Decepticons yet. Brobot beats the absolute out of their leader, Starscream. A giant cannon forms out of his arm and he swears that this is the last time he's ever going to show mercy. He then rallies the not yet Decepticons into fighting with him against Obvious Bad Guy. Of course, that's when they're interrupted by Obvious Bad Guy's forces, who kidnaps half of them and leaves the other half behind for some reason. Not gonna lie, I was a little deflated by this. Come on, Transformers 1, you're doing such a good job. I expect more from you than having the bad guy forces leave half of the people behind because reasons. I mean, at least have a scene where the Beholder is in the sky scanning down at the ground for life, and she cannot detect the leftover people because they're all hidden under bodies. I know that the Incredibles already did this plot, but hey, there's no shame in stealing from the Incredibles.
I'm not stealing, I'm just borrowing!
GoBot reaches the lowest moment of the hero's journey, only to be pulled out of it from a pep talk from female Randall. She still has an inflated sense of self, but she does admit that GoBot is better at her when it comes to caring about other people, about doing the right thing, and about not blindly following authority. A wild cream has appeared. Female Randall gets upgraded to Punch Lady as she convinces all of the Decepticons to obey GoBot in the coming battle. As GoBot tells them all to roll out, we flip over to Obvious Bad Guy, mocking the captured Decepticons in the council chamber. Brobot stands up defiantly, saying that he will no longer kneel to Obvious Bad Guy, resulting in him getting punished by having the sticker torn off his shoulder, rammed into his chest, and then burned there. Meanwhile, GoBot sneaks back into the city in order to talk with all of the different mining bots. He reveals the truth to them and gives an inspiring speech about how they need to stand up for themselves and take what they deserve. A Wild Cookies has replaced the Wild Cream. Inspired by GoBot, all of the mining bots help the Decepticons charge towards the main building and attack the Obvious Bad Guy. They defeat Obvious Bad Guy and take Beholder Lady's memory and use it to project holograms all across the city of all the bad things Obvious Bad Guy has done. Right as Brobot is about to kill Obvious Bad Guy with giant cannon, GoBot jumps in to stop him, saying that a public execution wasn't going to help the New Order. They have to be better. But Brobot doesn't like this, so he tosses GoBot away and fires at Obvious Bad Guy with his cannon. GoBot takes the shot for Obvious Bad Guy, getting knocked over the edge of a cliff. GoBot is temporarily saved by Brobot, who grabs his remaining arm to keep him from falling. But after a moment of thinking, Brobot decides to drop GoBot because he completes his heel turn. With nothing to stop him, Brobot kills Obvious Bad Guy and takes the transforming core from the body. he's transformed into Megatron. Meanwhile, GoBot drops into the core of the planet, is accepted by the leaders of the past, and is given the Matrix of Leadership, turning him into Optimus Prime. What follows is an epic fight scene that I would have been obsessed with if this came out when I was a kid. Optimus defeats Megatron and banishes him and the other soon-to-be Decepticons away from the planet. Never mind that you could just remove their Transformer core and then imprison them. That would make a lot more sense, and that way you can keep an eye on them. But past friendships and all that, what are you gonna do? Optimus then promotes his new friends, proving that networking is more important than anything else. He then uses the MacGuffin to restore energy to the planet, and then promises to defend his world from all invading forces. And I'm sure that nothing bad happens to Cybertron ever again. And that is Transformers 1, a movie that ended up being surprisingly good to me. I thought the beginning was a little sloppy and there were a few nitpicks here and there, but from the race onward, the movie really picked up and was really good. There was some good messaging about how doing the right thing was important, because if you don't, then you'll fall into a trap that causes everyone to suffer. There was also a line, "Some transformations are permanent," that really stuck with me after the credits rolled. There were a few wink at the camera references, but this is a prequel, so it's kind of to be expected. Is it a masterpiece? No, but I would give it the rank of I want to watch it again. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest going to see it, because really the only issues with it are the small details that they should have been a little bit more meticulous about. But what do you think? Did you see the movie? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you disagree with everything I have to say, that's perfectly fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion. Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody.
Do not despair.